In April 2025, a quiet unease spread across small towns and factory floors as Volvo Group North America dropped a bombshell. Up to 800 American workers were being laid off. It wasn't just a cut, it was a wound slicing through Macungie, Pennsylvania, Dublin, Virginia, and Hagerstown, Maryland, places where heavy-duty trucks rolled off assembly lines and where a paycheck built families, neighborhoods, and futures. The layoffs weren't isolated or accidental. Volvo made sure everyone knew there was a reason tucked inside their carefully crafted public statements. Market uncertainty, freight demand worries, possible regulations, and yes, the impact of tariffs. That last one hit differently. Tariffs were supposed to shield jobs, not destroy them. And just like that, a new chapter opened in the strange, tangled story of trade wars, blue-collar dreams, and the invisible forces that move industries like pieces on a chessboard. Overview of the layoffs. When Volvo announced the layoffs, it wasn't a random decision affecting one unlucky plant. It was a calculated triage across their North American operations. The Mack Trucks plant in Macungie faced the loss of 250 to 350 workers, slicing deep into a workforce that proudly built Class 8 trucks for both American and global markets. Over in Dublin, Virginia, Volvo's largest plant, employing around 3,600 people, prepared to let go of up to 350 workers, hitting a site that symbolized the company's heavy-duty ambitions. And in Hagerstown, Maryland, where powertrains, engines, and drivelines were painstakingly crafted, an additional 50 to 100 workers were shown the exit, on top of 43 already laid off weeks earlier. In total, the losses represented a painful 4% cut to Volvo's U.S. workforce. And the way they were spread across locations made it clear this wasn't a single failure. This was systemic pressure leaking from every seam. Volvo's official reasoning. Volvo didn't stumble over its explanation. It came crisply, repeatedly, almost rehearsed. Heavy-duty truck orders continue to be negatively affected by market uncertainty about freight rates and demand, possible regulatory changes, and the impact of tariffs. Tariffs weren't blamed in isolation, but neither were they buried. They stood shoulder to shoulder with other pressures, suggesting a world where uncertainty piled up like storm clouds on a horizon. By framing tariffs as part of a larger ecosystem of problems, Volvo sent a quiet but unmistakable signal. They weren't just battling market cycles or regulatory red tape. They were fighting economic forces that had been reshaped by political decisions made far from any assembly line. The tariffs in question. The specific tariffs hammering companies like Volvo weren't a single wall, but a maze of barriers and taxes, introduced and shifted with dizzying speed. There were 25% tariffs slapped on imported vehicles and parts, an enormous burden for any manufacturer reliant on global supply chains. A 10% baseline reciprocal tariff strained imports from most trading partners, further tightening the screws. Then came the targeted tariffs on Chinese imports, sometimes spiking up to an astronomical 125% or even 245%, aimed at parts and materials crucial to truck making. Meanwhile, older tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, still firmly in place, acted like a hidden tax on every engine block, every chassis frame, every truck cab rolling off the line. It wasn't just the weight of higher prices, it was the chaos of never knowing when or where the next financial blow might land. How tariffs hurt Volvo. The impact was brutal and multi-layered. First came the raw costs, as materials like steel and aluminum, sourced globally, skyrocketed in price. Then came the supply chain snarls, where components crossed borders multiple times, only to get trapped in a new web of taxes and paperwork. But perhaps the most corrosive effect was uncertainty, the human cost. Behind the sterile numbers, the spreadsheets, the shareholder calls, were people welders, painters, machine operators, mothers, fathers, kids, hoping their parents would keep their jobs a little while longer. In Macungie, Pennsylvania, and Dublin, Virginia, workers described an all-too-familiar cycle. Endless overtime to meet production targets, only to be thanked with a pink slip when the winds shifted. On social media, frustration boiled over. Some felt betrayed, describing how they had just been hired, only to face layoffs too soon to qualify for benefits. Others saw it as inevitable, bitterly noting the industry's history of overproduction followed by sudden contractions. Politicians rushed to weigh in. Democrat Josh Siegel called the layoffs a devastating blow and laid the blame squarely at Trump's chaotic tariffs, while Republican Ryan McKenzie criticized Volvo's decision but sidestepped the deeper policy debate. In the middle stood the workers, angry, scared, and left to pick up the pieces of promises that hadn't held. Wider industry impacts. Volvo wasn't alone in feeling the squeeze. Stellantis idled plants and cut 900 U.S. jobs. Volkswagen slapped import fees onto sticker prices. Toyota scrambled to shift RAV4 production stateside. Ferrari hiked prices by tens of thousands of dollars. Across the auto industry, supply chains buckled, prices spiked, and investment plans froze. Stocks sank. Executives scrambled. What was pitched as a patriotic economic strategy had instead sown chaos across boardrooms, assembly lines, and hometowns. Final analysis. The layoffs at Volvo were the product of a messy collision between market forces and political gambles. Cycles of boom and bust were nothing new in heavy trucking, but tariffs amplified every weakness, sharpened every slowdown, and injected a level of uncertainty that businesses and buyers alike couldn't ignore. Volvo's statements made it clear, while market shifts might have nudged them, tariffs shoved them. The question isn't whether tariffs played a role, it's how much collateral damage they left behind. What happens when the cure becomes worse than the disease? When efforts to protect workers instead erode the foundations beneath them? Were the Volvo layoffs a cruel twist of fate or the predictable consequence of treating global trade like a weapon? And if economic battles are fought on paper, it's the workers who bleed in real life. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, and if you want more deep dives into the real-world impacts of policy, industry, and power, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts below, share this video with others, and subscribe to the channel. Because next time, the story might just be about your town.